Hey, welcome to Mikey's Video Game Madness. Today we're playing Sakura Wars on the PlayStation 4. This is a Japanese RPG that's apparently been out for quite a long time, this series anyway, not this particular game. This game came out here, at least in the US in 2020. I'm going to do my best not to say and like, but I'll probably fail miserably. It's been a weird time. I've been really tired and I still want to make videos. It's why you haven't seen as many videos, because I'm never up to it. And now that I'm up to it, it's not as much. I don't have the kind of energy as I would like to have when I make videos, but the show must go on. So I really love these actually animated cutscenes. It's something that's becoming less and less, and usually I only come across it in JRPGs. Everything's going CGI. I love the fact, I don't know if this is from one of the older games. This series started on the Sega Saturn. I have no idea what number this was before I made this video. I went to go and check out to see if there is any Sakura War games released in the West beside this one, because this is supposed to be the game, I guess, that's supposed to get everybody into the series that hasn't experienced it before. Now, I will admit, like, so far, it's kind of won me over. It's a little bit whimsical and lighthearted with a little bit of dark moments, but I don't know. It almost has the appeal of, like, a family movie where there's nothing really that terrible. But keep in mind, the gameplay that you see, I already said, I'm off to a great start. The gameplay that you see is actually the first time that I've seen the gameplay myself, because I recorded the first time that I played this game. So take what I say with a grain of salt. This game could drastically change later on. I managed to get the footage down to, I don't know, 40 minutes. I had 45 and I was like, I'll cut out more dialogue, which is a huge part of a JRPG beside the battle system. And apparently that cut only took off 5 minutes. If I cut out any more, it's going to take some of the gameplay mechanics, and I haven't played enough of the game to show you more interesting things like other levels, etc. Especially since this game's story driven. I don't necessarily want to either, because I don't want to spoil the story. So, and because story is a good chunk of what a JRPG is. So I will basically tell you what's going on in the story before I start rambling on, and I'll probably still ramble in between. Welcome to Mikey's Video Game Madness, where we only talk about the game maybe 5% of the time, if you're lucky. So basically, you're playing as this guy. I already forgot his name. I'm not even looking at the screen. But you're in charge of this theater group. And basically, you're in wartime, fighting against demons of some type. And you're part of this theater group that basically keeps morale up. Unfortunately, your theater is running low on money, and you're also in charge of basically, I guess, Tokyo's robot army. I don't know if they're robots or whatever. I don't think this is steampunk. This takes place in the 40s. I don't know what the robots run on. They might run on hopes and dreams for all I know. Anyway, so you guys are in charge of these robots. You're like called the Flower Division, which might scare some of you off, but that's just what it's called. I know I said this game's whimsical. It's not that whimsical where it's about like cute stuff all the time or whatever. Part of this game is like dating sim and a JRPG and then like a budget action game. So anyway, you're in charge of the flower division, which is basically it contains like nothing but like the actresses that are actually in the theater, and you're in charge of them, and based on how you reply to them and stuff like that, like the individual actresses. I don't know how far the dating aspect goes. I know that was a part of the series before, but you get like this dialogue tree that's time, kind of like Telltale games, some of the BioWare games, Skyrim and stuff like that. I don't know what happens when the timer runs out, whether it picks the worst choice or not. But every girl's different. Like, I don't even know how old they are. Should I call them women or girls? I don't even know. It's so hard to make a video and not offend anybody anymore. It's kind of rough. But anyway, I'm doing my best because the last thing I want to do is upset anyone on Mikey's Video Game Madness. But anyway, I don't know why I just did that weird nervous laugh. But anyway, so when you talk to these women, because I believe you probably have to be a certain age to control a mech, based on your reaction, their attitude will be different to you. Like, one person might be more susceptible to positive replies or remarks, and one might be more susceptible or more receptive, not susceptible. Susceptible sounds devious. More receptive to like honest, kind of pessimistic replies and stuff like that. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see that. I probably cut like an hour and 45 minutes worth of footage. So basically, in between the action segments of this game, you're going around the theater, going on various missions that just kind of consist of exploring and getting to know like your comrades and stuff like that. And the comrades are the women of the theater, trying to make sure the theater keeps up. Early on, you're told like there's this some sort of like mech competition that every division of mechs around, I don't know how far in this world like the competition expands to, but all these different divisions compete. You're severely like under budgeted. Your theaters and your shows are failures every single time. You get to see one show and you realize how under budgeted you are, and everybody's underwhelmed, and then a demon attacks and you find out, oh wow, we can do it after all. And that's roughly around where I quit. What's cool about this is it's almost treated like a mini series, where every level, I use that term loosely because a level is like basically 2 to 3 hours. I don't know how long the other ones are. This one might just be longer because it's an introduction level, but like if you ever watch anime shows that are episodic, especially older ones, like at the end of every episode it'll kind of like give you a preview of what's happening on the next episode, and it's narrated from that character who's the main focus of the next episode. Like somehow they're like psychic and they know what's gonna happen, and it'll be like, oh, I'm gonna be in a bind next episode, so and so is gonna happen. This sounds really weird because it's all in Japanese, but after reading subtitles after a while, it's the weirdest thing if you don't read subtitles, at least for me. Like when I think back at the game, I hear English voices in my head versus the Japanese voices, because this game obviously doesn't have an English dub, but that's kind of funny when I think back of it. Like I always hear like English actors like talking the voices, even though I read everything. So apparently when I'm reading things, I'm reading in voices. That's actually the theater. I cut out the whole portion of the game where you meet all the individual members. I did leave in where you meet one member just to give you an example of the dialogue tree. There's also this thing that you'll see later on where it's like this, almost like this graph that like fills up, and you basically select how much you want the graph to fill up, and the higher the graph is filled up, the more passionate you'll be, and the lower it fills, the less passionate you'll be. It's really cool, even though this game's like kind of Disney whimsical and super cute, as you are the flower division and stuff like that. I know that's probably going to scare a lot of people away that kind of like their games more macho, but I think this is a nice change and different from a lot of games that I've played, including JRPGs, and I'm actually happy that I gave this game a chance. I remember a long time ago, now that I talked about the game, now I can like drift off and talk about whatever. I remember a long time ago, I was working this job. There is a manager there that was super into like Japanese culture and anime. Like I remember one day, I can't remember if it was a Naruto kimono or a Bleach kimono, but it was one of those blonde-haired anime cartoons. This is a long time ago. I don't really remember. I didn't really pay that much attention. I just remember it wasn't offensive, but it was like a shock to the system where like I didn't feel comfortable because like my environment suddenly felt like almost unfamiliar. But she would go to the anime conventions and stuff like that and like sell merch. She made buttons. She didn't give me any or even try to sell me. I would have bought some buttons. I mean, support local button makers. Of course I will. But she used to always rave how the Sega Saturn was the best console and nobody supported it, and it was way better than the PlayStation. Which I don't have that much experience with the Sega Saturn, but I've seen like a lot of videos that cover a lot of Japanese imports that seem cool, but I don't know how much you would get out of it if you don't speak and read Japanese. She was telling me about Sakura Wars. So this is a series that's been going on since the Saturn. I believe they were also released on the Dreamcast, like the first few games too. I don't know how. I skipped way ahead. This is like right when the action segments are supposed to start. I tried to leave in as many as the beautifully animated cutscenes as I can. I just love animation. So I left it in. Unfortunately, I cut it because there was a time where not only did I have to cut this video down, but I actually turned off the capture device until I felt like action was about to start. And it just randomly started really fast. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to like record the whole scene of her jumping into that tube. It reminded me of Batman going in the Batcave in the 60s. It was kind of cool, actually. Apparently, I'm easily entertained. So she used to say like how awesome Sakura Wars was, which was the first one looked like because I said I looked up the history of the series. Here's another example of the dialogue tree, and you can see it like timing down. But yeah, it didn't look very good, but the dating aspect, which is something that, unless you're playing like cell phone games or whatever, or maybe some weird indie game, it's not something that I've come across often with a lot of Western releases, and the only time I really import games is when it's a Western release and I'm not able to get a physical copy, so I don't purchase games I can't read. So she got one of those cartridges that you put in the back that like bypass, I guess, whatever kind of regional lockout that they have, and she had Sakura Wars, and I was like, can you even read what they're saying? She's like, I know a few words, so I have an idea of what's going on, and I'm like, Alright, I personally can't relate to like a game that's probably quite long and you only know a handful of words, but I saw that they released a Sakura Wars. It looked like it took place in New York. They only advertised the Wii. It said it was also available for the PlayStation 2, but I don't know if it was released for the PlayStation 2 in Western territories. But I know the Wii version was, and that one looked kind of cool. But I really like this one. This one's supposed to be a soft reboot, and I like it so far. It actually came with fucking stickers. Like I'm 5 years old. Like, the game itself is rated teen. I mean, it's not really all that hardcore or whatever, but it's just weird that it came with stickers. I would have much rather a color pamphlet than them to pay money on adhesive and all that stuff. I don't know what's more expensive, stickers or maybe a color pamphlet with like a little bit of artwork. I would much prefer that. I don't think this was a full-priced game. I can't remember. I know that makes me sound like an asshole, but I don't think it was a full-price game. And I don't know, like, I love AAA games. I was playing The Last of Us Part 2 when I finished this. I knew that Ghosts of Tsushima was coming out afterwards. I had just finished Final Fantasy VII Remake because this was all during the pandemic. That's still unfortunately going on right now. And everything, and at least in my state, is fairly still locked down, and I'm scared that it's going to get locked down again like it was before, because people just aren't really following the protocol, and our numbers were starting to go down of like people being hospitalized and death and stuff like that, and now it's going up again. Ironically, now it's going up with younger people. So what that tells me is the minute they're like, oh, we're in phase 3, people started going out to bars more and getting contaminated and infected and getting other people infected. I noticed like the minute we hit phase 3, where we started letting more people into like restaurants and bars, and we lifted up restrictions, like everybody acted like everything was over, and now we're kind of getting back into the same boat of where we started from, which is really frustrating with trying to find like employment and stuff that you can rely on and stuff like that, because people are starting to get afraid of the future, and I don't know. It's a shit show. I'm an introvert, so I can pretty much last longer than the average person being stuck in the house, but I will say it's seriously starting to bother me, and I think that's why I haven't had a lot of the energy to do these videos. Also, I apologize if my voice sounds kind of up, like not up, kind of off. It's because I don't know, it's just tired, and like I took a nap. Like, there's just days you just don't feel like dealing with shit, and today was one of those days. So like I took a nap and then went outside, walked the dog, and now that it's not raining anymore, the pollen's starting to come out again, and it affects my allergies. This video is so long, but anyway, I wish I could get things down to 15 minutes, but if I recorded a 15-minute video, I'd be like, this is the dialogue, this is the action, this, and like, I like how this explains how everything works in more detail than I could. When this game was originally released, there wasn't a lock-on system, which is interesting. So that was added on with a patch. That was a grievance that a lot of people had. When I say this has the action of a budget title, I don't mean that it's bad. It's just really basic. But again, I'm just playing like the first part of the game, and this game seems to like ease you into more stuff, which is awesome. and I just didn't want to get a 15-minute video. First of all, I know that's the digestible YouTube length, especially with my channel, because not many people, according to my analytics, will watch my video for not even 3 minutes. It was like 2 minutes and change. So I guess I better make this video interesting, so when I go to look back on the past, like I'm reading in my journal or whatever, I'll get something interesting. I guess maybe that's why I got a little bit serious there, just for my own benefit, because I'm selfish. That was a joke, but it really came off serious. I shouldn't do these videos when I'm tired, but anyway, you can see it's just like a basic hack and slash system or whatever. Eventually you'll get a partner and you can switch back and forth. And when I saw the trailer, it looked like there was more mechs on screen. I really like the little design. I think the little robots are kind of cute, and it kind of reminds me of Power Rangers, where like the robots reflect the characters like colors, and the kind of like their outfit and everything corresponds or whatever. I'm trying to think of I think it's called like Super Sentai, like the Japanese version of Power Rangers. It kind of reminds me of the Super Sentai genre, except with mechs. That although Power Rangers, their mech has a sword too. I always find that weird. It's just like you have a gigantic version of like this huge mech and it fights with a sword. Like, why doesn't it have like a bunch of guns and stuff attached to it? I don't know, but it looks cool. The cell shading in this game is kind of unique too. It reminds me of the cell shading in the newest Samurai Showdown game, where there's like a kind of like a black outline, like somebody drew it, and then when light hits the textures, like you actually can see like it's actually like a normal map texture, where it's like a 3D model, where the textures actually have like visual depth to them. It's not like just flat colors like your typical cell shaded game would be. I didn't see it ran on like Unreal Engine 4. It looks like it might, but I didn't see it. And usually when a game runs on Unreal Engine 4, they have to advertise it all over the place, so I don't even know what this game runs on. But it runs fairly well. But this isn't the most technically demanding game, but the story is interesting, and it might be like a slow burn in the beginning. Like, I want to play more of this game. I'm only giving you like my first initial impressions as I go way off topic, but I really like it. I really like the cutscenes. The anime soundtrack is really cool. I don't know if it's from older games or whatever. I always felt like with anime, like the production values, this isn't a bad thing. This is something I actually really like. Are usually like 2 decades behind. Like newer anime now starting to remind me of the production values of American cartoons now, where everything's drawn digitally and stuff like that. Kind of like the way this game looks. But one thing I do appreciate is that it uses like almost like a 70s sounding cartoon soundtrack and like a modern game, which I absolutely adore. Like a lot of the cartoons, part of it was due to localization, where these some shows weren't actually dubbed until way later, so maybe the soundtrack was appropriate for when it originally came out in Japan. But I mean, like things like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, like it still sounded like a soundtrack, like an orchestrated soundtrack from the 70s. It was kind of fuzzy. The production values weren't the highest, but the art was super detailed. You could tell it was hand drawn and then transferred into film. It had like a nice film grain to it. It's just, that's just something like I really like anime shows from even the 90s and before, like just had a really good texture. And I always often wondered why that appealed to me, and I think it comes down to a lot of American cartoons when I was growing up, when I was really young, like G.I. Joe, the real Ghostbusters, not the Funimation ones. I think those were done locally in like the Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers cartoons. But cartoons like The Real Ghostbusters, G.I. Joe, my sister used to watch Gem. Like, they all had, like, even Muppet Babies. Like, anything you watch and it says, like, Deke, like, and Dennis the Menace. I know the Dennis the Menace in Europe is, like, a whole different character and universe. But the American version of the Dennis the Menace cartoon that looks like the comic strip that used to, I don't know if it still does. I haven't gotten a Sunday morning paper since, like, my grandmother was still alive, and I would look through the paper that way. They were all, like, outsourced to Japanese, and I believe they said sometimes, like, Korean animation studios, and they just looked different. They looked closer to anime. So when it got closer to the 90s and they started doing stuff locally, or maybe they outsourced it to a different company that had more of an like an American cartoon aesthetic, like, things became less detailed. Like, a lot of anime shows run at like 15 frames per second, but it still looks good because the animation's super detailed. So when you have something less detailed that runs at 15 frames a second, like most American cartoons, it kind of looks awful. As much as I loved the X-Men and the Spider-Man cartoon that came on in the 90s, it looks terrible, and it's hard for me to go back and watch, as where I can watch like The Real Ghostbusters and it'll still look awesome. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, sometimes it looks like it was outsourced, but I don't know, like, maybe I need to watch the behind the scenes. Like, when the pandemic started, they like had this whole big box of, like, it wasn't the Turtle Van one that's stupid expensive for like this hollowed out turtle van that won't fit on your DVD shelf, but I've found like the cheaper clam cased version, which I ultimately prefer. I don't know if I'll ever get through any of those episodes, but I can't tell whether that was done. But yeah, like most of the American cartoons in the early 90s and going forward, now watching Cartoon Network and stuff like that, like, everything's like super simplified, even like the Disney stuff, which I have discovered because I leave Disney XD, although they do some kind of cool stuff like with the computers, like the newer DuckTales cartoon. Like, they add like this kind of layer that looks like it was printed. I forgot what it's called, but it has like that stipple layer where you see like the small little circles, like it was printed in a newspaper. Because if you don't know, like, the Donald Duck cartoons and the Disney comics and stuff like that were originally comic strips and actually comic books and stuff like that, and that's where DuckTales came out of. But the only show that I will forgive, and I feel like the animation got lazier after the initial run of Batman, the animated series. Like, I feel like The Adventures of Batman and Robin, which was the 4th season of Batman, the animated series, did not look as good. I recently got those on Blu-ray, and they cleaned them up so much. They took out the grain, and I don't know whether they used a filter or maybe like just having them in low res made them look grainy, but there's part of me that almost likes the way that the lower resolution DVDs look like, even though it's super clean. But that cartoon looks really good because it's fluid. It has more frames of animation, even though maybe the individual textures of everything aren't as complicated. The details and the objects aren't complicated, but since it is so fluid and it has an orchestrated soundtrack, it almost seems like a theatrical event. So that's also one of my favorite cartoons growing up. It's kind of weird that the creators of that cartoon originally started doing Tiny Toons. That's a cartoon I would really love to watch. I don't know if any of you ever watched Steven Spielberg's Tiny Toons, which were kind of like kid versions. They weren't like kid versions of like Bugs Bunny and stuff like the Muppet Babies, are just baby versions of Kermit the Frog and Miss Kitty. Not Miss Kitty, Miss Piggy. I don't know where Miss Kitty came from. Maybe because I was talking about Batman and Batman Returns. That's the name of Catwoman's cat. I'm really searching deep here because like on the animated series, Catwoman's cat's name is Ice. I think it was. I don't know. It's been a while. Oh, if you have Netflix and you're interested, you for whatever reason you haven't watched Batman the Animated Series, if you were wondering what that sound was, I made the mistake of drinking a soda really close to the microphone. I apologize. I hate the sound. At least it wasn't food. I hate the sound when people like eat really close to the microphone or burp into it. It's really gross. I think this is real time. It actually looks fairly good for the type of art style it is. And this is coming from just finishing The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, which in my opinion are some of the best graphics on PlayStation. Especially The Last of Us 2, no matter how you feel about that game, that's like, beside the new flight simulator game that I'm jealous that people are able to play right now and I can't, I'm really hoping the Xbox version looks fairly decent, because I have a feeling to get the kind of fidelity that I would want out of that game, I would have to upgrade the graphics card of my computer, which would probably cost as much as a PlayStation 5 to get the kind of fidelity that I've seen other people play with. Damn, that game's beautiful. But The Last of Us is the best looking game that I've ever seen, hands down, period. There's nothing on PC or any other system that I've seen it. And like I just said, beside Flight Simulator, so I'm not being like biased, like PlayStation is the best, like PCs aren't as good as PlayStation graphically and all that stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like that is the best. It just has the, in my opinion, it has like the best art direction and stuff like that, where it's almost photorealistic. Like the details in that game are incredible. Ghost of Tsushima like has a very stylized look, but I'll be honest with you, even though at least in the PlayStation version, I know they corrected this in the PC version, I think that the foliage is dynamic in Ghost of Tsushima, which looks great, and even though it's not dynamic in Horizon Zero Dawn, I think that's what I was talking about, the PC version. Like I'm all over the place because I'm watching a movie in my head and I'm basically trying to tell you what's happening. Like it's funny, I'm not this weird in real life. Like when I'm getting to know people, like especially nowadays, like you're trying to like talk to people like online and shit like that, I try to keep my YouTube channel secret just because I want to get to know the person first before they see my channel and think that like I'm this, which I am super awkward, but maybe not this awkward in person once I'm comfortable. Although, like, first meetings are pretty terrible unless the person's, like, really awesome, and the person can still be really awesome, but in some way, like, actually make me feel comfortable enough to be myself. But, yeah, what's funny is because work is so structured, and I've worked in sales before, I can talk to people no problem, but, like, once you get out of, like, that persona being, like, Michael the salesperson or whatever job you're doing, Michael whatever, like it's so hard to talk to strangers and stuff like that because you're yourself, and at least for me I feel super vulnerable and things like that. But yeah, so when I'm like talking to people online, like trying to make friends when people really can't like meet safely without like risking things, like going to the store right now is super traumatic for me sometimes. And yet, I guess, I don't know. I know things aren't going away. I think once a vaccine's out and stuff like that, I'll feel better, but I don't know. I don't want to get into what I was about to say, so moving on. What I was saying is, like, I just don't want people to see my channel before they actually meet me. It makes me sad because I realized when I first started making videos, and I guess I was actively talking to people a lot more, it was a lot more comfortable because I don't know who's really watching my videos except a handful of people, and thank you so much for sticking with the channel. And I'm hurting my channel by doing these longer videos, but I really love making these videos, and they're important to work on, like public speaking. And since I don't make videos all the time, that's another reason why I'm kind of rusty at making videos, because it's not an everyday thing, so it feels like the first time every time. But anyway, yeah, when I first started, like, I was a lot more enthusiastic, like, after a while, because I would always get comments. I'm not doing this. When I talk about views, it's never about money. Like, if money came its way, which it never will be, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll be honest with you. If I was making money or whatever, I wouldn't try to hide it. I also wouldn't advertise my Patreon nonstop. There's, like, videos that just have like a small bit of information that I want to know. They're already getting the view. If they made a video that didn't beg for money for the first 10 minutes of the video, I'd probably end up liking it. And it's just like, I'm like looking at the I don't know what would you call it, like the playback timeline or whatever. And I'm like skipping it. It's like 12-minute mark, and then all of a sudden it like refresh it or buffers, and then the person starts talking again, and they're still fucking talking about, make sure you slam the like button. I have a Patreon. I really appreciate all you guys, but give me money, blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, if I ever made money, I hope that I never do that, and please call me out on it if I do. Like, maybe I would add something at the end of the video, but I feel like all the people that I would want to like help out or send money to that make awesome content, I feel like all the people that maybe even though I can't give out an exorbitant amount of money, it's the right word. I'm so stressed out. Like, I don't have a small vocabulary, but I do when I'm super anxious when I make these videos, because again, I haven't made it for a long time. Like I said, like, when you get comments all the time and have people that you're constantly conversing with, it feels like a group of friends, and you get comfortable. Where now I feel like it's the first day of school and I'm in front of the class reading my first creative writing story that I worked on, and I hope everybody likes it. So I apologize for the regular viewers that used to watch the videos I think that are personally better, and I need to work on doing this more frequently, because maybe if the frequency is a little bit better where I'm constantly doing it, I think these videos will be better. And this is all information that you don't know about. But anyway, as I was saying, like, the people that I really enjoy their videos that actually talk about Patreon or hitting the like button, stuff like that, they at least wait to the end, and they're not badgering, or they won't even mention it, and they'll just have like a little thing in the corner of their screen. And 9 times out of 10, if you really want to support somebody, you're actually looking for that thing. You don't need to be like slammed with that information constantly. Anyway, this was Sakura Wars. If you want something different, and JRPG with a different flavor with the action battle system, and you like Disney movies and you don't mind whimsical and stuff like that, I would definitely check this out. I hope you're all doing wonderful. Please stay safe, and thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.